I made you the host. If you don't want the responsibility, I will take it back.
I didn't know I was the host. All right, no problem.
No, I just made it for you. I can
Oh,
stay the
okay.
host. I just started recording. I can take that responsibility back from you. So I figure this is like the first time if like more than like 2 people show up and like, it's fun for a little bit, then that's good. I didn't have a
Okay.
set time frame. I blocked out an hour, but I'd be surprised
Right.
if it went that long.
Yeah, I did the same. I blocked out an hour, but then I said to myself as I was sitting there going, I don't know if we can talk about money for, for
I mean,
like
I
that.
know I probably could, but like,
Right.
should we?
Should we?
So
Right. Is it, are we just going to be dragging it out? So good. I'm glad you're feeling that way about it. We'll just see
yeah,
how it rolls.
I'd rather just do a half hour and make it entertaining because also nobody's going to watch an hour YouTube video anyway.
Nobody
So
really isn't.
whenever you want to end it, I will just trust that. So
All right, cool. All right, I'm going to let people in. We already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 8 people already coming in.
it's not bad.
No, that's great.
So,
All right, I'm going to let them in.
okay, perfect.
Okay, are you doing camera? No camera.
I am. I'm just getting ready.
Okay, no problem.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's good.
Hello, you all. How you doing?
Hey, Joel, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Glad to hear you're
Good.
feeling better.
Thank you.
Oh, you are feeling better, Joel?
Yeah, I had the test done today and came back negative.
Good. I'm happy to hear.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Annie?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Okay, at the moment.
Good.
Hanging in there, as I like to say.
Hanging in there, that's for sure. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Hey,
How are
Andrew.
you?
I got an email for another study at Yale through Spark, but like I'm pretty sure I've already done all of them. So
I was gonna say, I think you've tapped out all of them at
if
Yale.
there's any I haven't done, let me know. But
Okay,
I'm
I'll let
pretty
you know.
sure. Yeah, they're like some
What's in the background?
the stock exchange, Wall Street. So
Oh,
I like
that's
it.
interesting.
Looks
Thank
really
you.
good.
Yeah, it looks good.
I think it's sensory overload. Too many lights.
No. I think it's
You want
great.
it?
I think it looks
Well, if it's-
wonderful. It adds a neat, impressive image for your student tie.
it's actually very quiet there. It seems like it should be a lot busy because they just show in the bell at the beginning and end of the day, but it's actually really boring.
How do they check
Interesting.
when they're supposed to social distance?
Nobody's there now. I'm not there. It's a
Oh, okay.
background. Sorry.
Yeah, but you know how it's normally like really crowded, and because of social distancing, they can't be doing it like that.
It's not that crowded. I don't think they're there, but it's also not that crowded. It's really
Oh.
it looks a lot busier than it is on TV. I've been there during the day. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, there's about 15 of us in here, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Andrew and I are trying out this thing with you guys where we want to start talking about the things we don't talk about, like money, right? And all of the issues that money brings up, that it challenges us with, and all of those things, and what that's like for those of us on the spectrum versus everybody else, right? Because it presents different challenges for us. So that's sort of where we're at with it. We want to be casual. We want it to be fun so that it stays entertaining and that we learn while we don't feel like we're learning. And so that's kind of the atmosphere we want to create. I think occasionally he and I had talked about having some guests in, so we'll hopefully be able to bring you guys some guests. But for the purposes of today, you can just understand that I am you. I know zero about money. I'm uncomfortable with money. Money is not my friend. Other than it being my favorite color green, I really have no attraction to money and know nothing about it, right? And so I am all of you guys, right? I'm the person who asks all the crazy dumb questions that I'm afraid to ask to other people. And I do that to Andrew all the time, and he gets my emails and he has to answer me. But for Andrew, it is a special interest. And so it's no big deal for him to answer these questions for me. So you and I and all of us out here who don't know anything about money are going to pick Andrew's brain every time we meet with him. And so that's what we're here to do. We're going to talk about money from all different perspectives. That's why we talked about, you know, the saving of it, the spending of it, the making of it, right? And all of the other crap that comes along with money, the bills, the anxiety, the fears, the budgeting, right? All the difficult things that come along with money. So that's my best that I could do to introduce you to what our concept is for this meetup. And I hope you guys will stay in touch with us. If you don't participate in chat here, that's cool. If you want to email us outside of here with ideas or questions, that would be cool too. I think both of us would really like to bring you the information you're looking for and not just come up with ideas ourselves. So for today we did, right? Today we came up with a super basic idea for kind of how to begin. You want to kind of explain that, Andrew?
Yeah, so it was, you know, so last week I needed to buy, let's say, a new computer for, you know, for the office. And this is a computer that we use 8+ hours a day, 5 days a week for work. And I think I spent well over an hour trying to save like $20, trying to, you know, get the computer on eBay, like refurbished for like that extra $50. But then I just ordered lunch and I spent $50 for the office with like no questions. So for something I'm going to use every day, 8 hours a day for years, I, you know, scrutinize trying to save. But then for, you know, I mean, there's little things that add up, but I'm talking even just like lunch, dinner. I didn't even give it a second thought.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the theme that we're going with, is like, why is that? That's really stupid. For the record, I still did buy the cheap computer and I did buy lunch, and I did, but I still think it's stupid. Like, that doesn't
Right.
make sense, right?
Why does it happen? And I think we can talk about it in a couple of different ways, right? There's one concept that I want to introduce sort of, which is like need versus want concept, right? Do I need this thing or do I want this thing, right? And making our decisions based on those priorities and really definitively knowing the difference between what we need and what we want, right? And how to budget ourselves and our impulses accordingly.
And I
Right? So
did the
that's one
complete
piece of
opposite,
that,
right? I wasted money on stuff I didn't need, and I didn't spend more money on something I needed. Why?
Right. Why? Right? Why are we making those choices? What is it? Is it the size of the purchase? Right? Is it what is it about it? Is it because you know so much about computers and so you know exactly what you're looking for and what they should charge you, but maybe not so much in a restaurant, right? Things like that, right? And we don't think about things necessarily when we purchase in terms of longevity, right? In terms of how long you're going to be needing or using this item, and if it's just a flash in the pan, right? Like you eat a meal, it's over, it's gone, it's done, right? And so thinking about those choices, but then also thinking about money in terms of our impulse control, right? Will I impulsively, without any problem, spend money on a meal, right? No problem, but have the control over the larger purchases like a computer or something that's more complicated, right? And what does that play in there for us? Because we know you can see all the articles out there about shopaholics and people that get other mental and psychological benefits from purchases, right? Where they are purchasing not for the reason of need or want necessarily, right? And so we need to think about all of those pieces and how they play into our budgeting and the choices that we make. I am certainly guilty of buying things online instead of researching prices and finding out whether in person it's actually cheaper, because I'd really rather just order it online and not be bothered. And so I'm definitely guilty of not doing price comparisons and things like that. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Are there some things that you guys feel like you will easily spend money on, any amount of money, and other things that you will really criticize yourself for spending any money on? Are there those things for you guys? Right? Yeah.
I mean, there's.
Sorry, I can't see you, Daniel. Go ahead, Michelle.
I had a similar experience, Andrew. Just the other day, I was buying checks because I had written my last check and I needed to buy more checks and I wanted to get a good deal. And like I had gotten like this little paper advertisement in my Kohl's bill, which is why I was writing my last check. And so I'm like, oh, how convenient. I just ran out of checks and I could get 100 checks for $3.99, and if I buy 4 boxes, my 4th one's free, and they'll give me free shipping. So I went online and wanted to do that, and but then they said because I'm not a new customer, I can't get that deal. So then I switched over to another website, and their price was more expensive. So then I switched back, and then I got into a big argument with my husband about what image goes on the checks and everything. So it's like, it was a very emotional thing. It should have been something that took maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops. I spent my entire morning on this stupid thing.
And I think I've argued with my bank, well, because I do that a lot actually, but in general too, on like free checks, and be like, ooh, I really should have free checks. Like, what can you give me? And like, I probably spent way too much time, right, arguing with my bank on getting free checks, because I just feel that they should be free, right? I think it's also one of those. So.
Yeah. It's like a moral thing now. It's like, I have an issue with this, right? But I think the other part of it too is like, we don't think about money, and we don't think about purchases outside of the money costs. But there are other costs that come with your purchases, right? Everything that we do using spoons. And so when we think about these purchases, and we think about our overall spoon usage in the day, right? Are we wasting our spoons over a couple of dollars that our spoons are worth much more than that, right? And maybe it's worth spending that extra $50 on the computer to spend less time and less spoons agonizing over it, right? And then have those spoons to use for something else, right? What is that value when we consider purchases, right? The anxiety and the worry, right? And all of those things. And that if we just give in to having to make a decision and not having to have a fight with the people about what's right or wrong and making it a bigger thing, are we saving spoons? And is that spoon saving worth the extra few dollars that you're spending? So that's a question I ask myself all the time, right? When I talk to my students, I talk about spoon management constantly, right? It is more important to me than any dollar that I ever earn are my spoons, because I can't replace them. I can't replenish them. I can't, right? I'm given the amount of spoons I have per day and to use as I want, right? And as I feel fit. And if I'm using them up on these really, these kinds of decisions about money, is that where I should be spending my spoons? Or should I be hiring a professional to help me, right? What are the things, where in my life and around money could I be using outside help, right, to save myself the spoons, or just give in and spend the few extra dollars, right? Overall, in the spoon usage, am I thinking about that? So Michelle, when you were thinking about doing the checks, and you were in that moment of doing the checks, and you were going from the 2 different websites, and then you finally made a decision and you had to decide what went on the check, right? How many spoons do you think, how much time and spoons do you think?
A whole day's worth, pretty much. I was not good for anything after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And right. And when we think about that, right. And same thing. So I have to ask you, Andrew, did you feel fully validated? Was the $50 worth all the hours spent on the computer and looking for it?
Well, I think to the point, right, because I like computers, I think there was the point where it was almost a challenge, like I had it in my head. It's really silly. Then again, I decided I think it was just to see if I could get it for a certain cost. I think that was more the challenge of it. I do think it turned into being fun to then I was just super committed, and I had to spend half the day just trying to do it because I needed to be able just to get it done. And I didn't want to like give up in where I should have given up. But then I bought, Andrew Arbo, who many know, a gaming computer, because I thought, I don't know, that was, and again, I spent $1,200 on a gaming computer that absolutely did not need, so I can pay him to play video games at work, because I thought it'd be a good idea at the time. I barely gave that any thought. So, but why'd I do that? And then I'm agonizing over something that's really needed over the, again, $50, $100. I think
And
it was more about the challenge.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
ask again.
Yes.
Are you paying him by the hour to play video games at work?
That was the idea at the time. I will keep you posted.
That's
But
another
there's a plan. Yeah. Well, if anyone knows him, he's very entertaining. So I thought people might really enjoy watching him play video games. So well, so far we haven't got one to work. I imagine there'd be lots of job opportunities if I, but No, but it was just an idea. So, and I try things, but that I didn't give nearly as much thought, right, to this.
Right. So we have to think about it, right? And I see, Michelle, you wrote in the corner in the chat rather about it being a decision motivated by emotion, right? And a lot of us do that, right? A lot of us buy things based on emotion or based on a feeling, right? And so I'm sure, Andrea, after spending all that time searching and then it becoming a mission and then it becoming fun and then it doing this whole thing, the validation at the end was probably worth it, the emotional validation, right? Not the monetary validation. So there was something else received as part of that process, right? And maybe that is a component in there. It's an emotional component, but it's still a component of why we purchase and why we make those choices about our budget. So I want to see if I can talk a little bit more about need versus want, because I feel like that too plays into this conversation, right? Because I heard you saying it, Andrew. I heard you saying we needed this computer, but I wanted this computer. And the one I wanted, I didn't think about, but the one I needed, I gave an extra amount of thought. Now, why do we think that is?
I got a gaming computer from someone streaming for $230. So, yeah. But my dad says the difference between want and need is bankruptcy.
Right. So if we think about that, and if we're making our decision, now the reverse is true too. If you make all of your decisions based on want, right, you're going to deplete your funds and not have money for what you need. But vice versa is true. If you spend all of your time and your energy on the things that you need, and you don't give any thought to the things that you want, or the pleasures or the joys or the entertainment in life, and you're not spending any of your hard-earned money on that, that's a problem too, right? That creates angry people, isolated people, people who are in like the hamster wheel of just going to work and getting their paycheck and coming home, right? And so we have to understand that in some ways, I remember Andrew and I once had a conversation, and his whole point of winning was that money, you can buy happiness with money, right? And so that was the whole conversation that we're having. But in a sense, you can, right? In a sense, when you want to go to the movies and have a good time at the movies, it does in fact cost you money, right? And so you do have to think about those expenses. And so your fund does play a part in here. That's why need and want hang out together so much, and they mimic each other, right? Because they confuse our brains, because both things have an important place in our life, right? And so kind of understanding the, where money sits in there, right? I always think about how when I'm looking and when I'm buying something that I want versus what I need, right? I'm always, I have a guilt sense that comes with it. I have a really hard time buying what I want, right? That's something that for me was never, I didn't grow up in a house where we had a lot of money to do that with. I was with a single parent who worked all the time. And so my mentality about want is you really better deserve it, right? You better have earned it. You better have deserved it. You can't just have want. I never gave want a place in my life or made it a priority, right? And that creates an unequal distribution of your emotions as well, right? Because I had all the things I need, sure, but I was miserable, right? And that, where does that come to play? Where does the joy of enjoying your money, or the happiness that your money can bring you, the joys, where does that play a part in your purchases, right? Are we giving ourselves that focus too? How do you feel about that, Andrew? Like want versus need, fun versus serious purchases.
I mean, I definitely think that people are usually one of two extremes, right? And then they usually end up marrying each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's true that, you have the other people. I have a lot of clients too, where they deprive themselves of so many things, and they just won't spend money on anything, that's stuff that they want, that will make them happy, that they can afford. And I think that's just as an unhealthy problem, for lack of a better term, or
Mm-hmm.
something that should be worked on. It's just not as good. It's almost like people who, I find individuals who hoard things also can tend to hoard money, right? So
Right.
I've been to some houses where that was definitely the case, but they wouldn't spend money on things that made them happy, that they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't so much the challenge. A lot of it was they didn't feel they could, or to like Becca's point, maybe they didn't feel that they deserved it. And that's not a good place to be, either. right? If
Yeah.
there's two extremes, being somewhere as close to the middle as possible is ideal, but it's really hard to do, not just for
Mhm.
us, but for literally anyone. Annie, I'm pointing at you. But seriously, I at least one neurotypical on the call. So
Right, but I mean, and it's the truth, right? I think everybody struggles with it, and I think where the line of difference lies is we want and need different things, right? So stuff that I would call a need, right, may not be considered a need by the greater society, right? Or something that I consider a want may be an absolutely absurd thing to someone else who's not on the spectrum as a want, right? And so we need to make sure that we don't let kind of outside influences take away our ability to know our personal needs and wants, right? Or judge our personal needs and wants, right? I care very little about clothing, for example. And as a woman, that's something that I was picked on for endlessly, right? I like a good t-shirt. If it's soft and I can sit in it for more than 10 minutes, I'm sold, right? And that's all I care about. I wear everything in black because I've stopped trying to figure out what matched and what didn't. And if I wear black, everything matches, right? And so like I've done things to sort of ease my troubles, but I'm not somebody who passes a shoe store and can't walk by, needs to stop and buy at least 2 or 3 pairs, right? That's not who I am as a person. And as a woman, that was really hard to explain to people, that the things that I wanted were these really old classical books, or I wanted, some piece of archaeological history. And that was a want for me, was so foreign to people when, I consider clothes a need. Like, do I need clothes because I'm naked or my socks have holes or what? Right? And I consider them a need, not a want. And a lot of other people consider them a want, right? And treat them as a want, right? So when we are thinking about our own personal lives and our own personal decision making, what are your needs and wants? That is a question that needs to be answered. Not what is the world telling me my needs and wants should be, but what are my actual needs and wants, right? And so that we're not making budgetary decisions that are for somebody else, right? Essentially, and that we're making budgetary decisions that work for us. Right? I'd rather save on buying socks for 6 months and buy 4 books, right? That's my want versus need. So what about you guys? Have you ever had your wants versus needs sort of criticized, or have you muddled them with other people's wants? Sure, Michelle, go ahead.
I was actually just talking to my therapist about this the other day, and I was like frustrated because it seems like I've always put myself last, in this family, because like anytime I get money, the kids need something and I would give it to them. Like most recently, I was substitute teaching in the public school, which I had told myself I would never do that again, but I was doing that right before the COVID actually a year before the COVID shutdown. And I was absolutely miserable doing it, but I had earned $1,000. And then my son decided he's going off to Japan and asked if he could have $1,000 spending money. So this money that I was going to put into my gardens, buying more fencing so that the deer don't eat my plants that, I spend a lot of time and energy on, I gave him the money to go to, have fun basically, and then I'm now that it's in COVID shutdown and I've been laid off and we're in a financial crisis, and I'm like, I wish that I had that money now, because I want to do something that I want to do with, for me, because COVID's been such a tough time. And it's like, now my priorities have changed. I want to spend on wants because it'll make me happy. Like you said, it's like, I'd rather spend $500 on horseback riding lessons than $500 on therapy.
Right. And I mean, those are real choices that we have to make, right? I mean, we all have our own budgets, whatever they may be, but that's a real choice that we're making on a regular basis. Am I spending this money on something I want or need? And where are these wants, needs coming from? Whose ideas are they, right? And, where does that come from? So we talk, right? Your kids are older now, right, Michelle? So they're of age, right? And so you could have said to your son, for example,
they could have earned it themselves.
You could have earned it yourself. Or we could say to our son, I'll give you 500 and keep 500 for yourself, right? We don't have to give people everything that we're working on, right? We don't have to give completely of ourselves. And that's something that's important. I think a lot of people use money that way, where they rather than having to do any work in the relationship, they sort of pay you off, right? Or they buy you things or whatever that may be, right? And so we have to understand that people do use money in that way. They do use it to quantify your love in some way. A lot of people see it that way, right? But that's not money's job, right? Money's job is simply, if we could all be bartering because we all had amazing skill sets, right? And we could all barter our skill sets, we could replace money. But we've created this system around essentially paper that now doesn't have gold behind it, but whatever, right? We all have all agreed to this system. And so now that we've agreed to live in this world with this system, we have to put value on ourselves, and value is determined through money in our society. That's the reality of where we are living, right? And the society that we create. And so,
And Michelle, like, now what if you combine the two and you had equine therapy? Would you feel okay spending $500 on that? Or is that still more therapy, or is that still horse riding?
No,
Like,
that's
I'm just
perfect.
curious. See?
That's perfect. But see, my husband thinks that therapy should be covered by the insurance company.
So that's
my
an example
husband's
like
wicked
me and the
frugal.
checks, right? Where I feel like my bank should give me free checks because they have given me free checks, right?
And
Or
who the hell writes checks anyway anymore? Please give me free checks, right?
oh, I have
But
tons
really,
of
that
free
would be part
checks
of my
I never
argument. How many
use.
people do you have like knocking on your door for checks, really, anymore?
Oh,
And
I've
so
had to throw away tons of checks. I just wanted them because they were free.
it's the
right?
principle, right?
Yeah.
And that for us on the spectrum, that thing about principle gets us in trouble, not just in money areas. It gets us in trouble a lot in a lot of places, right? We hate being rubbed the wrong way by something that is unfair or unjust, right? Or breaks a rule, blatantly breaks a rule, right? And so that stuff really can rub us the wrong way.
Well, like
And it
the
can
advertisement that said I could get them for $3.99 a box. I got really pissed when they're saying, "Oh, we recognize you as a valued customer, so that deal's only for our new customers. Our valued customers can have the special pricing of $9 a box." I'm like, "What? You want me to pay 3 times as
Right.
much? You don't value me that much."
Right. And so it's what we have to decide when we're having those moments is this argument worth my spoons, or is this argument a waste of my spoons? And do I just need to say, poor you will never really understand, and walk away, right? Because when we are thinking about our monetary savings, we have to include the waste of spoons in there, right? We need to, there's energy and effort that comes from sitting on these phone calls with people and explaining why you're right and having them not understand and then hang up on you and you have to call back, and right, and there's a million things that happen to us, and those things don't help our mental health and they drain our energy, right? So we have to really decide. Yes, Maura.
So when you say spoons, are you talking about your emotional resources?
I would say all of your resources. So spoon theory isn't mine. It didn't come from me. It comes from the chronic pain community. And what they do is they talk about how you are given a certain amount of spoons every morning, right? And those are your energy pods for the day, right? Whether it's emotional energy, psychological energy, mental, physical, whatever, it's all of that. And you have a set amount that you get every day that you can spend however you want. If you choose to spend them on the phone yelling at people over checks, you won't then have spoons. Like Michelle said, she couldn't do anything else the rest of the day, right? And so when we're making those choices, there are other costs besides money. And that's the stuff that I want us on the spectrum to be thinking about, right?
Thanks.
We're not just making money decisions about the dollar itself, but also how we make that dollar, how we spend that dollar, how much energy does saving that dollar versus, right? And where we're putting it, and what kind of organizational system we have for ourselves. That takes us a whole different set of energy than other people. We worry a lot more about the correctness of it and the perfection of it and the, am I doing the right thing of it? We tend to spend a lot more time on that. And what we need to learn is, first of all, if we're not good at it, there are people like Andrew who are very good at it that we can hire to help us, that we don't have to be in it alone, right? And that we can ask for questions and that we can do other things about our spoons besides going the route that everybody else goes and how they choose to do things, right? I know for endlessly people tried to get me to do the paperless billing stuff, but I will tell you that nothing scares the crap out of me more than a physical paper bill arriving in the mail, right? And so I know for myself, in order to stay on top of my bills, paperless billing takes away two things from me: my ability to understand what I'm spending and on what and how long, right? And knowing where it's going, because if it's on automatic payments, I'm not thinking about it at all. I don't even have to see the bill, right? So that takes that away from me. It also takes away my decisions about when I want to pay or if I think the bill is right. But I also, if it's not on auto payment, I'll forget if I'm on paperless, right? And so I have just been pushing along upstream against everybody else paperless and saying, I need my physical bills, right? And I need them to come regularly to me because they scare me enough to pay them on time. And that's what works for me. But learning that about myself took me a lot of time, and then bucking the system took a lot of time too, right? And so we need to be careful about all of those decisions about money that we're making, because there's other things in our sphere that get affected by that, right? Rather than what most people are thinking about. But the secret is we worry about it more because we think we should be doing it. And I would say, what would you say, Andrew? 85% of people out there have an accountant, right? I mean, how many people do you think do their own taxes?
So, and that's interesting. I would say that most people have an accountant or they have a friend who knows taxes. And it's one of those things that I think is just so overwhelming for people. It's a lot simpler than they make it out to be, right? But it's very, you know, it's one of those interesting things, right? Where I think people are much more capable, but that's probably a separate discussion
right?
too, right? Is it so scary? They're so afraid of doing things wrong. And I'm like, I work with accountants. They just make it up half the time, right?
And when you
it's
learn
like,
that, right, when you look behind the curtain and you get to see, right? But the truth of the matter is, spectrum or not, most people have an accountant because it's scary and it's a lot to think about. And if you're trying to run your household and take care of your kids and do your job, you don't have the bandwidth to worry about those pieces. So you go to someone whose job it is to do that, right? And so what we need to remember is that we too, as human beings, might just need help, right? I'm somebody who I needed help for a long time, and I've only just now mastered how to budget myself. But I needed help for a really, really long time. And for a very long time, I wasn't financially independent because I have dyspraxia and I'm not good with numbers. And I used that as an excuse to not understand my finances and to step away from that responsibility, right? And I think we can all do that. But what we need to remember is, autism or not, people are out there asking for this kind of help. So if you get to that point where you're like, okay, I get the concepts, but I can't make it realistic for me and I can't use it, well, then maybe it's time to ask for some help, right? And it's time to say, I need to spend less spoons, so let me ask someone who knows what they're doing, right? And so that's something else we need to consider when we're thinking about our finances, right? And who's making those big financial decisions for us and where are those decisions coming from? So those are some really, I think, important topics that we've talked about today. What do you think, Andrew?
No, I think so. I think it's really interesting. I think it was kind of fun. We have some ideas for next time too. So, but if anyone has one, I just see in the chat too, and tax law change and accountants. But I think that's also where, on one hand, it's really good to offload things to a professional. Like Becca keeps saying, like you only just have so much energy in a day, and being able to, you know, offload some of that responsibility so you could spend more time on the things that you want to do. So I have an accountant. I am perfectly capable of doing my taxes. It's just, you know, one of those where I kind of guess I do other people's, you know, to look at their tax returns all day, and I just kind of don't want to do mine. So it's, you know, on one hand ironic, on the other hand, you know, the shoemaker sometimes walks barefoot is an old saying.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, I know, like now we just started this food truck thing, but when we're cooking all day, the last thing I want to do is eat anything that I've smelled all day. And that's the idea, right? If you do it for a living, you don't want to do it in your free time. You do it for work, right? And I tell you, I never want to talk about autism on my days off ever, ever. Like if somebody comes to me with an autism question on my days off, sorry, call me on Monday. Like I can't, right? I need some time to be Becca without autism. I just need to be Becca for some of the days. And I think that's how a lot of us feel, right? And we need to know where our strengths lie, right? And where they just don't, and where we need to ask for help. Otherwise, our lives just become work, right? Everything is work. It's all work to get it all done, to get to the place where you could maybe rest for 5 minutes, right? And that's not a way to live. That's not a quality of life that we should be doing. And I don't know how it came to be that for people that are disabled, the idea of seeking outside help is somehow poo-pooed on, right? This is an ironic thing also that I don't understand. But if you notice, when people who are non-disabled go looking for an accountant or a real estate broker or anything, right? They get there, and then nobody looks at it any different. That's the way you're supposed to do it. But when someone on the spectrum or someone who's disabled or someone who has a physical disability all of a sudden wants to take ownership of their lives and make those decisions, oh my God, you're going to get an accountant? It's that complicated for you? You can't do it yourself? Oh, you need to learn those skills, right? And it's like, okay, well, why do if I have all of these other challenges, why do you want to layer that on top of me when I, out of all of these people, should be able to ask for help, right? But for some reason, when we seek that outside help, we are also poo-pooed for doing it and for not trying to push through and be inspirational, right? And do everything ourselves. Yes, Michelle.
A part of that too is like almost the opposite, is that we're afraid we're going to get screwed over because people see us as vulnerable and they're going to take advantage of us.
That's true
So it's
too,
like,
right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of there are like complications to all of these decisions, these money decisions, the money fears, the budget fears that come from our specific scenario, right? That come from the fact that we have an invisible disability, right? Or maybe we have multiple disabilities, right? And for some reason, we feel this, there's another sense of pressure. There's like another, like we're held to a different standard in some way. And so I think we need to readdress that, right? I mean, it's something that I'm really pushy about these days, right? I hate the word independence. I think the word independence is a lie. I really wish people would stop using it all over the place. I don't think a single person in the world should seek independence. I think it's a fallacy. There is nobody out in the world who by themselves all alone without the help from one other single person is doing everything. Right? Paying their taxes, cleaning their house, taking care of their kids, doing their job. If that person exists, right, they're probably dead because there's no way you can do all of that. It's just not possible.
And
right?
I would
We
also,
all need to be seeking a healthy interdependence, right? Where we are making choices about who is helping us with the things, but that we are seeking help for what we need help for, right?
and I love Becca was the one who really said the interdependence thing to me, and I so strongly agree with it. And I was doing a presentation yesterday on like, you know, independence, and like I'm like, crap, I should have changed it, right? Because Becca's so right, it's true. And I did kind of say what she said, just not quite as well. But also, you know, it really comes to, you know, the more successful you are though, right? Like the more you depend on other people, right? Because if you can just focus your time on the things that you really like doing and the things that you're really good at, you can spend a lot more time doing those. So for me, for example, to write something, and I know Becca's seen me write and some people have, and I have moments of clarity that are weird, but for the most part, I can't write at all, you know, or it takes me just so much longer. You know, it's one of those situations where I much prefer if I can have somebody help me write or do some writing for me. I can, you know, do something else 4 times faster. So, you know, the CEOs have, you know, personal assistants who will schedule all their meetings, who will do all their things, right? I think the more successful you get, the more people you have who are helping you. So you could just continuously focus on just the stuff that you're good at, right? So I think it's, you know, why is it okay that the person who runs the company has all these people working for them doing all of these things, but as an individual, we can't feel the same?
Right. We should, and we should be running our own personal corporation, right? That's what your life is. Your life is your own personal business. And if you were making choices about it, like that's what it was, and you were the CEO for shit sure, you would be delegating stuff all over the place, right? Because any successful person that you see has the thing that they're good at, and then the rest of it that everybody else does for them, right? And so what we need to do is think about who can we be asking for help from? Who do we trust? What kind of help are we looking for? Because here's another mistake we make, is asking for the wrong kind of help from the wrong kind of people, or the right kind of help from the wrong kind of people, right? So you can go to your school nurse and ask her all you want about stocks and trading, but she's making it up, right? You want to make sure you're asking someone like Andrew or someone who works in finance right? The questions about finance. So making sure that you're asking for the right help from the right people, right? And that you're not asking for the wrong advice from the wrong people. That's another component of how we need to be making our decisions differently, right? And how we seek out that help and who we choose to interdepend on. Some people are worth it, some people not, right? And so we need to think about those pieces, because every single person, whether they use the spoon analogy or not, we all have our set of spoons, whatever it is, right, for our life. And no one ever feels like they have enough, and everyone always feels like they don't know where they went, right? And it's our job as people on the spectrum to say, I know exactly where my spoons are. That's not worth spending it on. That's not worth spending it on. Yes, that, right? Because that's how we create a sustainable life. Otherwise, we're just creating this roller coaster of doing a lot, crash, doing a lot, crash, right? And we can't do that. We just can't sustain it, right? It's not realistic. And so making those choices become really important. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
How do you do that? Because I do that lot of crash thing, because that's like what's natural to me, because I'm ADHD as well as on the spectrum. And it's like, what you're suggesting is like what everybody's been bitching at me my whole life and nagging me to do, but it doesn't feel right. It's not natural to me to do it that way. So how do you like make yourself do it?
Well, you need to change the standards that you hold yourself to, right? I think when we are doing a lot, we are trying to show everyone we're okay and that we've got it together and we're in charge and we can do all these things for ourselves. And we're trying to kind of show the outside world that we're okay, right? And the reason for doing that is where we're messing up, right? We need to not be doing it for everyone else's satisfaction, right? We need to do the amount in the day that feels like to us enough, right? So making the choices about, I now know 8 years into this, working it through it, like I can't do more than 4 appointments in a day. If I have to do more than 4 appointments in a day, I will crash and burn the next day. I need the next day off. Right? And I know there are consequences. So what I do now is try to schedule my day with no more than 4 appointments. Can I physically do that? Probably for a week or two. Sure can. Will I feel like shit at the end of it? Sure will. Right? And so that's the avoid. It's that we've tried to hold ourselves to some mysterious neurotypical standard of what productivity looks like. Right? And it's unattainable. They can't even attain it. And when
That's
we try to take it,
not exactly how I'm doing it. It's because something takes my interest and I just get so totally lost in that interest that I don't like time management for anything else in my life. I just pursue what I'm interested in.
well, that's the mental control piece that we've talked about a little in the course that you did, right? And so that's about your impulse control in there. That's about saying to yourself, I need to do X, Y, Z today. I can spend 2 hours on this today, right? Mm-hmm. And that's also, it's a different form of the spoon management, right? It's allotting your spoons to the right places, right? Because you're doing the same thing, but in reverse, you're using it for something that you like, but it's still off balance. Now you're doing want, nothing. So need isn't happening ever. And that's right.
Okay.
So we want to kind of,
and that's why I've been bitched out life and nagged, because I wasn't doing my responsibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
And that also will end up feeling like crap too, right? There's nothing like letting your responsibilities go for a little while and then having them all slam on top of your head in a big giant pile, right? That sucks. And so avoiding that is also a saving of spoons. It's also a spoon allotment, avoiding those big crashes, avoiding not getting things done because we're doing something in replacement. We need to just be in search of that balance all the time. Need and want balanced with each other, not one way or the other, right? Fun and work balanced out, not uneven. And when our brains like to create the uneven because we live in that black and white fantasy world where everything is or isn't, right? And that's not true. And so we're either working or we're not working. We're either, right? And we can't live in that state. That state is what kills us. We need to find the balance, right? Where we're getting enough of each of the things, right? And like when we think back on like the ABA history and why it makes us all so mad because our special interests were, treated as a reward, like we were dogs, right? And so we can do the mistake that is on the opposite of that and try to recover all our special interests and do it all the time. We deserve to do it all the time. No, right? That's the opposite and equally ineffective. We need to be meeting in the middle. We need to find the balance between what we want and what we need, and right, and making sure that they happen at the same time. Because I don't know anybody that can enjoy what they want if their needs aren't taken care of, right? Who cares if you get the best book in the world if you haven't slept in 4 days and you can't read it? Yes?
100%.
So that's the idea, is really it's the spoon management and your allotment, right? Yes, do that thing that has your interest, but no, you have to have a little restraint, and you can only do it for a certain amount of time each day, right? And that will also, it will also help you with keeping your special interests longer and keeping your interests longer. You won't blow through them as fast, you know? You'll get into the details more instead of rushing through, which is fun too. All right. Anybody else have anything else to share or questions about money and fears and budgets? Yep, go ahead, Maura.
Well, I have found that like having limitations has forced me to learn how to budget. Like I hardly had enough to even pay for my needs. So I had to first learn to put my wants aside for a while, and then to develop the budget, and then to follow the budget and learn discipline. And that helped me a lot.
Yeah, it definitely does, right?
Yeah.
That's why the separation, knowing for us ourselves, the separation between want and need is so important, because it can get confusing. A lot of times when we want something, it feels like we need it, right? And that can be confusing. And so really sitting down in your life and going, no, I need to pay the rent. I need to buy groceries. I need gas for my car. I need insurance on my car, right? I want a new sweater, right? Difference. And so we, as individuals, whatever those things are for you, having a clear idea of what they are is the beginning of what Maura's talking about. It's the beginning of that budgeting, right?
But I think it's really valuable what you said, Becca. Sometimes our wants are needs in another sense, because they're helping us get by emotionally. So that took me a very long time to learn. And just during the pandemic, now I know that I have to put time aside, and if possible, money aside, to do some of the things that I enjoy.
Right? You have to. We have to add the joy in. You are responsible for your own joy. I say it all the time. I love to create it. I love sharing it, because it's such a invaluable thing to experience joy. It doesn't come around often. And so when you have it, or the ability to experience it, go get it, right? It's really important for us to have the joy in our lives. And as people on the spectrum, I say often we're criticized for our joy, right? Like we don't do joy correctly somehow. The things that bring us joy are weird. When we flap and stuff because we're being joyful, that's weird, right? Our joy is just constantly criticized. And joy is this truly pure and rare feeling. Who are these fucking people to criticize our joy and to steal it from us, right? And so part of this budgeting and learning your needs versus wants is knowing that every person deserves joy just for being, just because they exist, right? And that it's your responsibility to make sure the joy is in your life. And if you need to, create it yourself, right? And that what brings you joy doesn't have to bring anybody else joy, right? It can, you can share it if you want to, but it doesn't have to, right? It doesn't have to look any one way. And I think that's what we're told. We're told from very young that, you know, the movies is fun and staying home all night alone is not fun, right? Sorry, I have way more fun by myself alone at my house in my pajamas than I ever did in a movie theater with people talking through my movie and popcorn and noises, and right? And so to me, that's a lie. And so who am I letting create and make the rules about those things? And so we need to understand that a lot of the things that have been categorized for us as wants aren't wants. They're our needs, right? They're just different from what other people are expecting. And so we need to kind of give ourselves that. Miriam, do you still have a question?
It was more just a point.
Mhm.
Every time you were bringing up spoons, for me, I think the spoons are used in a different part along the process. Because for me, I actually come from a spot of having a lot of financial literacy, just because both my parents worked in financial related jobs. I mean, one of my parents is actually an accountant, so like it's always kept me on track with that. So like when I get a paycheck, it's always like, okay, this percentage is going to have to go to the side, because you know I was just grown up knowing that. But if anything, that just makes me more uncomfortable with money even though I have that knowledge, because what I end up doing is using my a lot to gain income and revenue and, you know, have money coming in. So even though I have all this financial literacy, I don't have enough money coming in to the point that I can just relax and budget it out and not like, sometimes I joke, with my mom about I'm not even budgeting, we're just tracking. Like she's like, you're technically you're not budgeting, you're tracking your spending, because I didn't have enough money to actually budget it. I was spending down my savings because there wasn't enough money coming in. I was just trying to slow down the spending down. So I feel, and also like in one of my history classes, we did like a economics of history class in high school or something like that, and we like calculated like this is how much you make per hour, like after taxes and stuff, or like we were looking at like your actual take-home wages or something, and it's like it's so small. Like if you look at like especially minimum wage, like we took minimum wage and we were like, this is like after transportation and taxes and all that, this is how much you actually made. And like at one point when I did it for like transportation and all that, it was like $3 at one point, and I'm just like, an hour to make $3, and it's just like, or it was like 3 or 4, and it was just like, it's so upsetting. And
it is really upsetting.
That's what uses up my spoons, is like, you know, I'm trying to work to bring money in while also knowing that it's not going to go towards much for a lot of the types of jobs that I've been getting, because they're just not well paying.
Right. And so that brings up a really important point, right? When we talk about budgeting, it's not just about spending, right? It's about making and saving, right? It's all of those components. Are you sending out more money than you're bringing in, right? What are we doing here, right? Or am I oversaving? Am I making myself a crazy person because I don't know what the numbers are really, right? I think that our brains have the ability to inflate all of those things, right? They get huge. Like, I really hate doing government paperwork, and I really hate dealing with finances, right? Because I've just struggled with it my whole life, and it's not something I look forward to doing. And so those are things that I avoid. And the longer I avoid them, and the less real the numbers are in my head, and the less I actually know about what is really happening, right? The more anxiety is created, the bigger the problem becomes. And so I think that for a lot of us, it's just so scary that we want to avoid. And avoiding us doesn't help us to really understand what's going on or to help adjust our lives accordingly. And so I think we need to kind of ignore our brains a little bit that's screaming, like run out of the room, and say, no, I need, this is the information I need. For me, it makes it easier for me when I have someone else with me, right? Like I love having someone who like in charge of my finances or who's helping me make those decisions. Because even if I know what I want to do, I still need to talk it out. Like that's my stuff. My brain needs to hear it out loud and talk through the possibilities and make sure I understand why I'm making these choices, right? And I need someone with knowledge that I can rely on to have that conversation with me, right? Other people don't feel that way. They understand their finances. They're comfortable doing it on their own, right? And we all do it different ways. We've all had a different history with what money means in our life. And so we have to remember that comes with us into our lives and our choices, right? However our parents talked about money around us, right? Whatever their theory on money was, right? It's now genetically implanted in your brain. And even though you may make different decisions about money, you will still hear their voice in the back of your head telling you how wrong you are because, right? And we need to know that we can make those decisions and that the world has changed and we don't have to do it the old way, right? And that we can seek current help and updated help. But we do need to get involved in our own finances in that way. All right, well, I think that about does it for us today. We'll be back next month. Andrew and I have decided we're going to talk about holiday spending next month. Fun times, right? Good one. Yep,
Yeah.
Ted. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So I know you guys talked about the ways you could spend money. What I was wondering is, are you guys able to say do a lecture on how to make money or do anything like that, or is that not one of your specialties?
Yeah, because you need money to manage money.
Right.
Exactly, and that's what I really feel like I need more of now. Is how
Me
could
too.
you make money and do it in a way that doesn't deplete your energy too much? To me, the stuff you guys talked about, it's great advice. It's stuff I feel like I'm already doing, and I'm right now trying to figure out ways that I could make money, if that makes sense.
That is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I definitely think maybe even like December or January for the new year, we'll figure it out. But that's a great topic. I have some really fun ways that I made money. I made money doing like all sorts of really strange things, nothing inappropriate, but just again, lots of really fun things. So I think that's a great topic.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, good idea, Ted.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I was saying, where it's like I have the financial literacy, but it doesn't help if you don't have enough money coming in to actually budget it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we will have a Pick Andrew's Brain for Making Money episode. That is what we will do, because we all need it. And, sometimes you hear ideas and they get you started on something else. So it's always good to be taking in information of all kinds, right? Thinking about all of those pieces. But I want to just remind everyone that once you start making money, we still have to talk about all of this stuff, right? Because once you have the money, then it becomes almost even more important to understand your fears and the budgeting and right and where it's going out to and how it's being spent, because it's coming in now and you have it. And so now it's even more important to really understand all the pieces behind it. I think having income come in when you haven't had it for a really long time can also kick us off on a little impulsive spending spree that we can go on, which gets incredibly easy now that everything's online. So I'm glad we're going to talk about both. That's the whole point of what we're going to be doing. And again, if you guys have any other suggestions or questions or things you think we could talk about as a group that would help, throw them at us, leave them in comments or send us an email, whatever it may be, because otherwise we're both just going to be wasting our spoons bringing you guys together to talk about nothing. So let's talk about what you guys want to talk about, and make sure that we're discussing it together as a group. Okay. Yay. Well, thank you guys.
Yay, first one. I'm glad this was entertaining. We were like unsure whether like we'd be able to keep people engaged for like how long, but this is awesome, guys.
This is
Thank you. This is
great.
fun.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. Thank you. And Becca, what was that saying? Shit sure? Is that what you said?
Yes, for shit sure. That's what we always say.
That's definitely entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, really. But I don't know. That's how I talk. So you guys know I'm being authentic. All right. I will see you guys next month. I know I'm available via email. I'm sure Andrew is as well. So feel free to reach out.
And we're doing, just before everyone goes, I'm just going to let everyone know the time just in case. But hold on. I think it's 3:30 it's normally going to be 3:30 on the 18th. So it's always going to be the third Wednesday at 3:30 Eastern, right? 1:30 Mountain time. So, okay. We'll keep doing it. Look forward to seeing you guys next month. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.